Kritaha tapobhihi, with all your tapas, you have purchased me, you have bought me. Adyah pravriti avanatangi tavasmi dasaha. Starting from today, I am your dasa. He says that. Now when Shiva says that, we come to the 6th sarga and let's see how Parvati responds.
विश्वात्मने गौरी सन्दिदेश मिथः सखी अथ विश्वात्मने गौरी सन्दिदेश मिथः सखी दाता मे भूभृतां नाथः दाता मे भूभृतां नाथः प्रमाणीक्रियतामिति दाता मे भूभृतां नाथः
So when Shiva says, Kritas tapobhihi, and I am your dasa, what he's saying is, let us marry, and we can marry now, and Shiva has agreed for the marriage. Parvati she doesn't jump in and say, yes, let's marry right now, let's go away. Right? She doesn't do that. She says, Sandidesha mithas sakhim. In secrecy, she calls her Sakhi and tells her. And what does she tell her? Data me bhubhritam nataha. Bhubhritam nataha, the king of the mountains, is my data. He is the one who should be giving me away. Pramani kriyatam. Please solemnize the marriage with him. She just doesn't jump in. So she could have married Shiva right away. So the reason is there are 8 kinds of vivahas in the Indian tradition. Right? Brahma, Prajapatya, Arsha, Daiva, Gandharva, Asura, Paishacha and Rakshasa. Paishacha and Rakshasa are very bad ones where like the girl is kidnapped and taken away. Now, we see all these kinds of things even today. And Gandharva Vivaha is what we call love marriage. Shakuntala and Dushyanta married. That's Gandharva Vivaha. And the best ones are the Brahma, Prajapatya, Arsha and Daiva. There's some difference between them, but Brahma is one where the father gives away his daughter to the groom, with a lot of gifts in a traditional wedding in front of, like a Agni Sammukha and all this. So she wants to get married like this. Right? So she's not swerved from the path of dharma. Even though she loves him, until now she was just arguing with the Vatu, the Brahmachari, and now that Shiva has shown his true form, and there is a very nice nuance here that she doesn't tell this to Shiva. She says it through her Sakhi. She doesn't even tell him directly. And that's very nice. But this is just a statement. The poet is just trying to set the scene. And this doesn't make it poetry. What makes it poetry is the next verse where he explains, Taya Vyaahrita Sandesha Sababhau Nibhrita Priye Chuta Yashti Rivabhyashe Madau Parabhruton Mukhi. And the way she said this, poetry is description. The poet is not trying to just report some events. He's trying to create the same anubhava that he had to us. If we take a photo somewhere, go to Lake Tahoe, take a photo, and next month you see the photo, you don't get the same, you're not awestruck in the same way that you were when you saw it, right? So the photo cannot do it. Mere reportage cannot give that anubhava. So the poet has to do something to describe it, which will try to give us that anubhava that the poet experienced. And he does this in the subsequent verse, where he likens Parvati to a mango blossom, Chuta Yashti. And the mango blossom is, or like it's hiding behind the leaves or behind the mango branch, and the mango blossom cannot speak. But what heralds the arrival of spring is the cuckoo. The cuckoo sings. So he's likening Shiva to Vasanta or spring, and the mango blossom is talking to Shiva through the cuckoo by singing. So she is telling the cuckoo, and the cuckoo is talking to Shiva, and like singing. That is what he likens it. This is a beautiful upama or a simile where he likens all of them to different aspects of spring, and you can rightly attribute it to her character, her Sakhi's character, and Shiva, and that's what makes this poetry beautiful. So now that she tells Shiva, no, you should solemnize the marriage with my father, let's see what Shiva says.
सतथेति प्रतिज्ञाय विसृज्य कथमप्युमा सतथेति प्रतिज्ञाय विसृज्य कथमप्युमा ऋषीन् ज्योतिर्मयान् ऋषीन् ज्योतिर्मयान् ऋषीन् ज्योतिर्मयां सप्त सस्मार ऋषीन् ज्योतिर्मयां सप्त सस्मार 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 स्मर शासनः सस्मार स्मर शासनः
Satatheti. So Shiva said, Tatheti, so be it. Okay, he said, so be it. Yes, I agree. Satatheti. Pratignaya. He said yes. He confirmed that he will do whatever she says by solemnizing the marriage through her father. And he immediately, the poet says something very beautifully. Visrujya kathamapyumam. Visrujya. He took leave of her. Bilkota. He took leave of her. Kathamapyumam. He doesn't say how. He says kathamapi. Somehow. Because even Shiva, who burnt Manmatha, is now eager to marry Parvati quickly. He also is in love. And that is the dhwani there. Kathamapi. Somehow. Hego. We say that. We don't say how. Somehow. That's exactly what this is. Kathamapyumam. And immediately he sets about to the task of arranging this. See, in our tradition, the groom doesn't go and talk directly to the father of the bride. He doesn't do it. So what did he do? Rishim Jyotirmayan Sapta. The Sapta Rishis, he remembered them. Sasmara. He thought of the Sapta Rishis who were Jyotirmayan, radiant with the power of their tapas. We know the Sapta Rishis. And they are the ones whom he wants to go and talk to Himavanta and ask for Parvati's hand in marriage. And here he uses a very nice epithet for Shiva, which is Smara Shasanaha. Smara means Manmatha. Smara Shasana, one who dealt with Smara, with Manmatha, because he taught Kamadeva a lesson in the third Sarga. So he calls him Smara Shasana, but the poet doesn't say Smara Nashana. He could have said the same thing. Because Manmatha will come back. He did not Nasha. He just dealt him. He taught him a lesson. So Smara Shasana. And Shiva thought of these Saptarshis. Vasishtha, Marichi, Atri, we know the Saptarshis. So now when he thought of them, the Saptarshis, immediately as soon as he thinks of them, they came over. They come before Shiva. And they also, the poet says, Sarundhati ka sapadi. Vasishtha also came with Arundhati, because Vasishtha and Arundhati, they always are together. And this is a very nice omen, because if you know, after the marriage ceremony, Vasishtha and Arundhati are shown, even though it is, like a noon, midday, the Purohit says, oh, somehow there, there is Vasishtha and Arundhati, you should see that, and it's auspicious. But Arundhati also come. And the poet now elaborates with a few more verses. The Saptarshis did not just arrive like that. He says, Aplutas tira mandara kusumotkira vichishu vyomaganga pravaheshu dignaga madagandishu. They came bathed in the celestial Ganga, Vyomaganga pravaheshu. Now Ganga flows in all the three worlds, in Swarga, in Bhuloka and in the Patala Loka. When Ganga flows in the Swarga Loka, she's called Mandakini or Vyomaganga. And on the Bhuloka, she's called Bhagirathi, or we call her Ganga. And in the Patala Loka, she's called Bhogavati. So, this is an indication that they were in the Swarga and they bathed in the celestial Mandakini. The Mandakini, which was fragrant with the Mandara Pushpa from, Indra's gardens, and the waves were lapping up and, lapping up with the fragrance of these Mandara Pushpas, and the Dignaga Madagandishu, the Diggajas, or the 8 direction, right? Each one has an elephant, Dignaga. And those elephants, they produce a Madagandha, some kind of a liquid which oozes out, which is supposed to be very fragrant. And the Mandakini, which was fragrant with all this, they bathed in this because it's an auspicious occasion when Shiva remembers them and they have to come, in that way. So they come here and then they come before Shiva, and then the poet makes a very beautiful description of how the Saptarshis were and their Mahima. During the great deluge or the pralaya, Bhudevi was submerged. You know the story of Varaha Avatara. So now the poet has completely gone off to a different direction to describe the greatness of the Saptarshis. And suddenly from the story of Shiva we have gone off somewhere to one of the avatars of Sriman Narayana. So what he's saying is, Pralayapadi, during the great deluge, Asakta Bahulataya Sardham Udhritaya Bhuva, when Varahaswami, he lifted up Bhudevi with his tusks. Varaha is the wild boar, Varaha. And Varahaswami lifts up Bhudevi from the deluge with his tusks. Right? We must have all seen this imagery everywhere. We have seen sculptures. During that time, Mahavaraha Damshtrayam Vishrantaha. What were the seven sages, the Saptarshis doing? They were Leela Jalvagi with great joy. At ease, they were resting on the Mahavaraha Damshtrayam, on the Varaha's tusks, on the Varahaswami's tusks. They were probably playing Jokali or like on a swing or something. That's what he says. How does this show their greatness? What is the poet trying to say here? There is a dhvani. The Saptarshis are actually Brahma's Manasa Putras. And Brahma is the son of Vishnu. So these are just Vishnu's grandsons. Now whatever Sriman Narayana does, he wants to take his grandchildren with him. So they are playing there. Even in that great confusion, because they know he's going to rescue Bhudevi. And the other thing is, there is a story of, like a Krishna Devaraya, who once came to the court and told his courtiers that something happened. Yesterday someone, came to me and hit me. They jumped on my back and hit me. How should I punish them? Some of the courtiers said he should be banished. Some of them said he should be hung and so on. But Tenali Ramakrishna said, Your Majesty, that person should be, given a golden anklet. Krishnadevaraya smilingly said, Why? Why is that so? Tenali Rama said, Your Majesty is always so very well guarded. If somebody is so close to you, it must obviously be your son or some other child who must be playing on you. He must have jumped on you and, hit you on the back joyfully and lovingly. Similarly here, the Saptarshis cannot just go and dance and jump on Varahaswami. They must be so close to him. They are his grandchildren. And that's what the poet brings out so beautifully by taking an aside and going to a different direction. But there is no indication of what. He doesn't say it Vachya. He's saying it Suchya. He's not explicitly saying it, he's suggesting it. He's suggesting it through the dhvani and the indication. And that's what makes it very beautiful. So now the Saptarshis who come before Shiva, they also have. So Shiva looks at the Saptarshis, and then he looks at all seven of them without any distinction, without any distinction in respect to each of them, because Angirasa is probably the eldest, there is someone else who is younger, and so on. And the poet says a second line which is very profound. Stri puman ityanasthaisha vrittam hi mahitam satam. Stri puman iti anasthaisha. He had no distinction between man and woman because there was Arundhati. He looked at all of them, smiled and welcomed them with the same respect as everyone. There was no distinction because vrittam hi mahitam satam. Character alone is worthy of respect. Kalidasa says this. So Kalidasa does this. This is a great figure of speech called the Arthantaranyasa, where Kalidasa writes, or any poet, they write something in the first half of the verse or the first three lines, in the four padas of the verse, and in the fourth one they generalize something. So he said, in the first two he's saying that something specific about how Shiva saw them, and in the last two he's saying that only character is worthy of respect and nothing more, and Shiva did not distinguish between any of them. He accorded them equal respect. And now that Shiva is here and they are in front of Shiva, they praise Shiva, and let's see what they say.
चेतसि वर्तेथाः यस्य चेतसि वर्तेथाः स तावत्कृतीनां वरः यस्य चेतसि वर्तेथाः स तावत्कृतीनां वरः किं पुनर्ब्रह्मयोनेः किं पुनर्ब्रह्मयोनेः किं पुनर्ब्रह्मयोनेः यस्तव चेतसि वर्तते तव चेतसि वर्तते किं पुनर्ब्रह्मयोनेर्यस्तव चेतसि वर्तते वर्तते
So this all these shlokas that he's singing, they are in the meter called the Anushtu, which has 4 feet or 4 lines or 4 padas. Each line has 8 syllables, so totally 32. And within these 32, the poet has to convey a full idea, something very concrete with figures of speech, something very interesting, because the story is well known. Okay, that is the challenge here. So the story of Kumarasambhavam is very well known. I'm sure it was there in the Puranas, it was not Kalidasa's own, and he's just retelling the story. So when you're retelling the story, you have to tell it anew. Something has to be new in the way you tell it. You cannot cook up a new story now. So something new has to be said. This is like a movie remake. You cannot redo the same movie and have the same actors with the same sets and everything. So the director brings in his own version, like some other kind of an interpretation, something, which is what this whole tradition is. Right? The stories are from Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, but each poet thinks of something else to highlight. And just in this one verse, the poet says something, Yasya chetasi vartethaha satavat kritinam varaha. He, that person is so fortunate in whose mind you dwell. The saparishis are now telling Shiva, in whoever's mind you dwell, that person is very fortunate, which just means that person is thinking about God all the time, because you are residing in their mind. That's the dhvani here. Yasya chetasi vartetaha. In whose mind you dwell, satavat kritinam varaha. That person is varaha, shreshtaha. He is already blessed. Kim punar brahmayones tava chetasi vartate. What then to say of us who seem to dwell in your mind? Because Shiva thought of them. The Saptarshis always think of Shiva. They are meditating on Shiva. But Shiva thinking about them is something great. They are saying we are so blessed because you thought of us. See, when we think of someone, right? We might be thinking of some great artist or somebody else. We are talking about them all the time with friends. But when they think about us and when they call you, you are so happy because, oh, that great person thought of us. So we must be really good. So the poet says, Prayah pratyayamadatte swaguneshu uttamadaraha. We indeed are blessed, if great people think us worthy of some kind of respect, then we are indeed really blessed. Right? They are praising themselves because they know that Shiva has thought of them, and there has to be something, because Shiva has summoned them for something which he cannot do, and it has to be done by them. And then they said another one which shows their greatness, which is a very, very nice one. Satyam arkacha somacha paramadhyasmahe padam adyatuchaistaram tabhyam smarana anugrahat tava. Satyam arkacha somacha param adhyasmahe padam. It's true that we are even greater than the sun and the moon. Arka is sun and Soma is the moon. Okay? And in the pantheon of the gods and like that hierarchy, the Saptarshis are higher than even sun and the moon. And they're saying that, but you thinking of us, we are indeed higher. We are indeed higher than them. That's the one meaning. But there is another thing here that Kalidasa is indicating. This is actually literally true. The Saptarshis, we call them the Great Bear, the Saptarshi Mandala. And the Saptarshi Mandala is actually at a declination angle of about 55 degrees. And the sun is only at 23 degrees or so. And the moon is even lower. So in reality, the Saptarshi Mandala is actually higher, and the poet is giving a poetical reason for this, for being located at a higher belt in the sky. Right? So it's a poetical reason, something which is already true. We all know that. But the poet is ascribing a different reason in a different scenario, which makes complete sense. They are higher than the sun and the moon, metaphorically and physically. And this kind of poetical reasoning is called a Kavya Linga Alankara. It's a figure of speech. Not very, it's not found everywhere, very few verses, but this is one of the really beautiful ones, I feel. And so now that they are here, they tell Shiva again, they have a request to make of Shiva even before he speaks to them.
साक्षात् दृष्टोऽसि न पुनर्विद्मस्त्वां वयमञ्जसा न पुनर्विद्मस्त्वां वयम् अञ्जसा प्रसीद प्रसीद कथयात्मानं प्रसीद कथयात्मानं न धियां पथि वर्तसे कथयात्मानं न धियां पथि वर्तसे प्रसीद.
So when he sung Sakshat Drushtosi, it was in the style of Samagana. Okay? So in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Vedanam Samavedosmi. And since they are now talking to Shiva and first praising Shiva, he sang that in the form of Sama. Very beautiful. And this is a very, very profound verse. Sakshat Drushtosi. Sakshat Drushtosi. We are able to see you. Sakshat, like verily we are seeing you right here. Aksha actually means sense organs. We usually use it in the term of eyes, but Aksha is just sense organs. Because they are able to see him, they are able to hear him, they are able to even smell him, because Shiva is anointed with bhasma. And I'm sure bhasma smells, because I think either in Ujjain, in the Mahakala temple, or either in the Pashupatinath temple in Kathmandu, they actually go and bring bhasma from a funeral pyre burning outside the temple, and then anoint it on Shiva during the Bhasmarati in one of these big temples, Shiva temples. So they can probably smell him too. Right? So Sakshat Drishtosi. You are here in front of us. We can see you, we can hear you, we can talk to you, everything. Na punar vidmaha, but we cannot understand you. We cannot understand the scope of your mahima, even though you are right here. Prasida kathaya atmanam. So please tell us about you, about the greatness. Na dhyam pativartase, because your greatness is not even in the path of our intellects. The dhyam pati, dhyam. You see, we have so many kinds of intellects. But you are not in any path. I mean, if we go in the path, we proceed further, okay, we'll encounter Shiva and the Shiva Tattva. But you are not in that path and we don't know which path to take. And this is a very profound thing in Vedanta. Like Kumarasambhavam says, because how do you say the greatness, and how does one say about the greatness of Brahman or Shiva or Vishnu or whatever? Kumarasambhavam says, Holikeke baayividuva vedada taaligegal odagidavu. So the Vedas tried to say the greatness of Shiva and they opened their mouth, and then talage means the palate or the upper part of the mouth, vanagidavu, they became dry because they tried to, he is like something, you have to say something, okay, God is like something. Now what do you compare him with? There is nothing equal to him to compare him with. So their mouths dried up because they are still waiting for something to compare him with. Right? And then even the Brihadaranyaka says, Neti Neti. He's not like this, he's not like this, right? Neti Neti Shrutir Bruyat Anrutam Pancha Bhautikam. Okay, God is not like this. You can say he's not just this, he's more than this. No, he is not just this much, he's bigger than this, right? So if you want to compare, let us say if you want to compare Shiva to the sky, he's as large as the sky. He's called Vyomakesha, one whose hair is the sky, Vyomakesha. That means he must be even bigger than that. Or if you want to say he is as large as the ocean, these are the two big things that we can think of, right, as humans, the sky and the oceans. Agastya Maharshi just took one aposhna and drank the ocean. So you cannot compare Brahman to the oceans. He must be much, much larger than that. So what do you compare him with? Right? You cannot. So the minds and the intellects, aprapya manasa, yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. The words tried to reach him, our minds tried to reach him, but it cannot. It returned, empty-handed, without reaching the goal. There's a very beautiful verse in Shankaracharya's Ananda Lahari or Saundarya Lahari. It says, Ghritak Kshira Draksha Madhu Madhurima Kairapi Padaihi Vishishyan Akhyeyo Bhavati Rasana Matra Vishayaha. This might help understand why. Because he says, Ghrita, Kshira, Draksha and Madhu. Ghrita is ghee, Kshira is milk, Draksha is grape, and Madhu is honey. They are all sweet in some way. Madhurima, there is sweetness in all of them. Varying, subtle gradations of sweetness. Kairapi padaihi vishishyan akhyeyo bhavati. By however many words, you cannot describe their sweetness. Because rasana matra vishayaha, because the anubhava of that sweetness is only the property of the tongue. So can you tell something about how sweet something is to someone who has never tasted it, never seen it? You cannot. And this is about things that we have actually experienced. We have eaten Ghrita, Kshira, Draksha and Madhu, yet we cannot tell it to someone who has never seen this or eaten this. Then what then to say of some Brahmanubhava? That is his greatness. And the poet says all this Vedanta and the distilled essence of Vedantas and the Upanishads in one verse. So the Saptarshis have a request. Prasida kathayatmanam. Please explain to us your greatness. Right? And they do say that, but then immediately they realize and tell him this thing.
अथवा सुमहत्येषा प्रार्थना अथवा सुमहत्येषा प्रार्थना देव तिष्ठतु सुमहत्येषा प्रार्थना देव तिष्ठतु चिन्तितोपस्थितान् चिन्तितोपस्थितांस्तावत् चिन्तितोपस्थितांस्तावत् शाधिनः शाधिनः करवाम किम् करवाम किम्
Chintitopasthitan, you thought of us. Chintita, you thought of us. Upasthitan, we are here. You thought of us, and in the next instant we are here. They suddenly realize that they are asking for too much. Prasida Katayatmanam. They ask Shiva to explain his greatness, and they themselves know that it will take forever and it's beyond their intellects. So now they come back to the point and say, Athava, or this is a Sumahatyesha Prarthana. This is too big of a request. We know that. Sumahati Esha Prarthana. This is too great a request. It will take too much of time. Deva Tishtatu. Really, stand. Okay, let it be. Like he's using such an idiom which we use in our speech. Tishtatu, let it be there. Let's keep this aside for a moment now because it will take too much time. Shadinaha Kim Karavamaha. What? Shadi is not Shadi, the Hindi Shadi. Okay, that will come later. This is Shadi, which is command us. Tell us what should we do. What do you want us to do? Because if Shiva has called them again, as I said, it must be something that he himself cannot do. Otherwise, if he thinks it's going to be done, it will be done. So if he has summoned them, they don't want to delay that any further. So they immediately come back to the point and ask Shiva what they are here for. And now Shiva starts speaking to the Saptarshis.
विदितं वो यथा स्वार्थाः न मे काश्चित् प्रवृत्तयः विदितं वो यथा स्वार्थाः न मे प्रवृत्तयः ननु मूर्तिभिरष्टाभिः ननु मूर्तिभिरष्टाभिः ननु मूर्तिभिरष्टाभिः इत्थं मूर्तिभिरष्टाभिः इत्थं भूतोऽस्मि सूचितः.
Now Shiva starts with some prefatory remarks. He says, Viditam vo yatha swartha name kaschit pravrittayaha. You know it very well that I don't do anything selfishly. Name swartha. There is nothing I do for myself. Okay? Whatever Shiva does is for Loka Kalyana. And how does he say it? He doesn't say I do that, I do this. He doesn't go on a long list. And Kalidasa says it just in one line. Nanu murti birashtabhirittam bhutosmi suchitaha. Am I not verily Ashtamurti himself? Is it not suggested by that? So there is this Ashtamurti tattva. Shiva is said to be Ashtamurti. So today in the Mangala Padya that Sumantha sang first, Ya srishtis srashturadya vahati vidhihutam ya havir ya chahotri yedve kalam vidatta shruti vishaya guna ya sthita vyapya vishwam. The very first verse that he sang is the Mangala Padya of the Abhignana Shakuntalam by Kalidasa, where he invokes Shiva and tells about his Ashtamurti. What is Ashtamurti? And Shiva is composed of eight elements, he says. And they define everything. They define everything because there is space, matter, time and the doer. For anything you need matter. And the space and matter are the Panchabhutas. Bhumi, Apa and Anila. And then the space is the Akasha and the Vayu. Together these five constitute the Panchabhutas. And the Panchabhutas are referenced everywhere from the Vedas. Tvam Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Nilo, Navaha and so on in the Rig Veda itself. Right? And then you need space and matter. Now to do any task you need time. The time is the sun and the moon. And these two regulate time, the day and the night. If you remember, one of the names of Shiva is Mahakala. Mahakala. Kala, he is the one who controls time. Literally the word Kala comes from Kalana, to count. He is counting our time. Shiva is actually just counting our days and time. And that is the Mahakala. So now we have space, matter and time. And the doer, the Yajamana. So in everything that can be done in the Vedas is likened to a yagna. And in the yagna, everything is done by a Yajamana who does the whole yagna. And Shiva is the Yajamana. And the Yajamana is also one of the Ashtamurti tattvas. And since you can use this metaphor for any task, Shiva is the one who does everything. And that's why he says, am I not Ashtamurti himself? Because everything you do is for Loka Kalyana. And Kalidasa uses this Ashtamurti tattva. He references it in many places, even in the Malavikagni Mitra, where he says, Ashtabhir yasya kritsnam jagadapi tanubhir bibrato nabhimanaha. The whole world, Jagadapi Kritsnam, the entire world, Bibrato Nabhimanaha. He sustains the entire world, but still he is Nabhimanaha, Na Abhimanaha. He doesn't have that ego that I am doing this. And even in the Raghuvamsha and in the Kumarasambhavam, Tatragni Madaya Samit Samittam Swameva Murtyantaram Ashtamurtihi. He is the Swayam Eva Ashtamurtihi. So Kalidasa references this. And there are also some sculptures from the Gupta era which shows Ashtamurti Shiva. And some of those, somehow it must have fallen off, it must have fallen off the fashion map later. And, the sculpture landscape changed over the years and it's not as popular now, but you can see them in a few museums. So some of these things that Kalidasa says, right, they have entered epigraphy and, sculpture world and so on. So even earlier, when I said the Mahavaraha Damshtrayam, the Saptarshis were, dancing joyously on the Mahavaraha Swami. The earliest Varaha sculpture that we see, Mahavaraha, is found in the Udayagiri caves in Madhya Pradesh, in Vidisha. And that is from the time of Kalidasa. It's a massive sculpture on a wall, rock-cut wall, which is about 15 feet by 35 feet. 15 feet by 35 feet. Extremely good. Then there is brilliant Varaha Swami in Mahabalipuram. There is a very beautiful, intricate one in Rani Ki Vav. And in the Hoysala temples in Somnathpura and Halebeedu. So some of these things probably came out because of Kalidasa. And actually I forgot to mention there that when Mahavaraha Swami lifts up Bhudevi, it doesn't show Bhudevi as a globe, it shows Devi. Because probably the concept of globe and everything, as the world probably came much, much later, and only in the last 200 years you see bronze sculptures and stone sculptures of Bhudevi being shown as a globe on top of Mahavaraha Swami's tusks. So, but whatever Kalidasa described in his poetry entered the sculptural world. The Sthapatis took inspiration from that and they appeared on the walls of the temple. We can trace so many things. There is a very famous book called Epigraphical Echoes of Kalidasa by C. Shivaram Murthy, who was the curator of the Madras Museum. And he describes a lot of things which sculptures which owe their references to Kalidasa's works. And then Shiva says, again, he continues his statements to the Saptarshis.
तृष्णातुरैः वृष्टिं विद्युत्वानिव चातकैः विद्युत्वानिव चातकैः हरिविप्रकृतैर्देवैः हरिविप्रकृतैर्देवैः सोऽहम् तृष्णातुरैर्वृष्टिं विद्युत्वानिव चातकैः हरिविप्रकृतैर्देवैः प्रसूतिं प्रति याचितः प्रसूतिं प्रति याचितः.
So there is a very famous line in a Kannada work. It says, Kivin Dintisuvar Samasta Rasamam. All the rasas in music, we have to, it has to come through the ears itself. You have to experience everything by listening. And they're verily doing that. See here, when he said Yachitaha, the Dainya Bhava is, the way he sang Yachitaha, that shows the Dainya Bhava. And Shiva is a bhogi as well as not a bhogi. He's a bhogi because one of the meanings of bhoga is serpents. And Shiva is adorned, his anklets and bracelets are all serpents. So he is a bhogi, he's adorned with bhoga. He's also not a bhogi because bhoga means luxuries and pleasures. He has turned his back on all the bhogas. So maybe that's why they chose a bhogi for this verse. So Ariviprakritair Devair Prasutim Pratiyachitaha. Devaihi, by the Devas, they are being tormented by the Asura. And as I said, it's Tarakasura, who was born of Vajranga and Vajrangi. He does intense penance and he gets a boon that only a 7-day-old child can kill him. That's the boon. Now don't ask me why Devas go around granting all these kind of boons. Okay? But they do this. So he can only be killed by a 7-day-old child and they are being tormented. And prasutim pratiyachitaha, prasutim, prasava, is they want a child now of Shiva. They're begging Brahma and other gods so that they want, please, Shiva should produce a son. Shiva and Parvati should produce a son who can come and save us from this, deliver us from this. And that is the statement. But then the poet makes it poetical by bringing in some drishtanta or some simile or something. Soham trishnaturair vrishtim vidyutvaniva chatakaihi. Now Chataka, the Chataka is a bird. We don't know if it's a mythical bird or a real bird. Some people say it's the Jacobin cuckoo. It's a kind of a cuckoo bird. And what its specialty is that it opens its mouth up and it's always looking at the sky because it only drinks water from the clouds. It only drinks rainwater. Apparently, there are a couple of species of cuckoo which do that, and they only absorb moisture. And maybe the poets have observed this and made this into a poetical convention, which is called a Kavi Samaya in Sanskrit literature. There is a great tradition of Kavi Samaya. So he is likening the devas to the chatakas, because the chatakas are helpless. They are opening their mouths up and waiting for rain. They're waiting, looking at rain-bearing clouds to see if there is going to be rain. And they are so dainya, they are begging. Even the chatakas are begging, and the devas are begging. And where is the rain going to come from for the chataka? The chatakas will get rain. And where is the rain going to come for the metaphorical devas? It is Shiva and Parvati's son who is the rain that the devas are waiting for. And that he says Vidyutvaniva. Vidyut is lightning. Okay? And only a rain-bearing cloud can have lightning. Okay, you only the stratonimbus or some of those clouds which are dark in color, only they are the rain-bearing clouds, and only lightning is produced by rain-bearing clouds. So he's likening the cloud to Shiva, the lightning to Parvati, and the resulting rain to Kartikeya. And the Chataka Pakshi is the devas who are waiting for that to help them deliver the devas from the evil Tarakasura. This is a beautiful, like in just one line he says all this. It's complete. The verse is complete in itself. And the whole imagery is complete. I'm not using any adjacent verses, nothing. It's complete in itself. And that is the beauty of this verse. The Chataka is a great metaphor here, because the Chataka is a metaphor for a spiritual longing. The Chataka is longing for rain. It's longing for rain to help it. And the devas are also longing, they're yearning for rain. The Chataka is a metaphor for patience. Right? It doesn't drink anything else, it's waiting for rainwater. It knows it's going to rain someday. The devas also are waiting that Shiva and Parvati will produce a son. And it's a metaphor for purity, because rainwater is pure. And Kartikeya, who's going to come, is going to be born of Shiva and Parvati, who will deliver them from all evils. And that's the beauty of this verse.
आहर्तुमिच्छामि पार्वती अत आहर्तुमिच्छामि पार्वतीम् आत्मजन्मने आहर्तुमिच्छामि पार्वतीमात्मजन्मने उत्पत्तये हविर्भोक्तुः उत्पत्तये हविर्भोक्तुः उत्पत्तये हविर्भोक्तुर्यजमान इव आरणिम् यजमान इव आरणिम् आहर्तुमिच्छामि पार्वतीमात्मजन्मने यजमान इव आरणिम्
Now Shiva has come to the point and he says, Ata ahartum ichchami parvatim atmajanmane. For the sake of producing a son, atmajanmane, parvatim ahartum ichchami. Ahartum, I don't know how to say this in English. It's like tandkoloke, mane tandkoloke, to bring the girl to our house. That's what we say, right? So these are a lot of untranslatables, and I'm just helpless here. But I want to marry Parvati, and for this auspicious occasion they've chosen Mohana. And again, as I say, the first one is a statement, and the poet makes it poetical in the second one, and this is a very profound verse. Utpattaye havir bhoktur yajamana ivaranim. Again, he's bringing in the metaphor of the Ashtamurti and the Yajamana. Yajamana is the doer, and Iva Aranim. So, when you do a yagna, you have to first, create a fire, and that fire is created with a special thing called the arani. Arani is the fire sticks. If you have seen a traditional yagna, a sacrifice, right, you would have seen that they rub two sticks, with the Uttararani and the Adhararani, and they do a manthana, and for that Ivaranim, the manthana, I think he took the swaras back and forth to show the manthana of the aranis, the stick. It's just like, like the, what is this, when you're churning butter, when you do this, the same thing is done with the arani. And he's trying to bring out that bhava here in his music. It's very beautiful. So the Uttararani and Adharani, the wife holds the Adhararani and the husband holds the Uttararani, and then they produce fire with some straws and fibers from the trees, which is then used to kindle the fire in the yagna kunda. So a yagna indicates any holy task. Okay? And the yagna that Shiva wants to do here is for the benefit of the world, yaga. And also, the yagna is the Dampatya yagna. The Shiva and Parvati marrying signifies the Dampatya yagna, and that's what is the metaphor here. And the yagna as a metaphor for doing anything, goes back right to the Vedas. From the Purusha Sukta, Yagnena Yagnamaya Janta Deva, with the yagna itself, they did a yagna to propitiate the gods, to propitiate Prajapati. And then, and now I said Shiva is the Ashtamurti, because all the matter, the doer, the time, everything is in him, and he is doing Loka Kalyana, he is offering himself to the yagna. And the Purusha Sukta actually says the same thing. Yat Purushena Havisha Deva Yagna Matan Mata. Yat Purushena Havisha. With the havis that is being offered to the yagna, Purushena, that Purusha itself is the havis. And all the Ashtamurti, whatever I said, is the havis that you are offering to the yagna. Yat Purushena Havisha Deva Yagna Matan Mata Vasanto Asya Sidajyam. So Vasanta Asya Asit Ajyam. Ajya is ghee. And why do you pour ghee into the fire? To rekindle the fire, right? And so Vasanta Rutu, or the Vasanta season, is the ghee, because Vasanta is full of life, and you're putting life into this yagna. Vasanto Asya Sidajyam Grishma Idma Sharad Dhavihi. Grishma Idmaha is firewood, and Sharat is the havis, and so on. The Purusha Sukta and the Vedas are all full of the metaphors of yagna. You can either treat them as Purva Mimamsakas do and call them proper sacrifices which you need to do, or you can also take out the metaphorical meaning like this, which makes complete sense, because everything we do is a yagna. Whatever you do, you have to pour in your blood, sweat and tears. Hopefully not blood and tears literally, but we have to put in everything that we have, offer ourselves if we want to get a task done. And that is the metaphor here. And since that is the yagna, the Dampatya yagna, even the simile that he has offered is like Ivaranim. He is using that fire stick as a simile to show that that is the way Shiva wants to do it, and that's a very beautiful verse.
तत्र व्यापारं कर्तुमर्हति प्रायेण 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 एवं विधे कार्ये एवं विधे कार्ये पुरन्ध्रीणां प्रगल्भता पुरन्ध्रीणां प्रगल्भता प्रगल्भता
Now Shiva tells something. There is also Arundhati. Arundhati has come along with Vasishtha, and Arundhati is one of the great Pativratas. Arya api Arundhati tatra Vyaparam kartum arhati. He calls her Arya Arundhati. Vyapara is not in the in the sense of Vyapara that we speak in Kannada. She's not going to do Chaukashi there. So it's like she can participate. And he says something very, very nice here. Prayena evam vidhe karye purandrinam pragalbata. See, they're going there to see the bride and ask for the bride's, ask Himavanta for the girl's hand in marriage. So there has to be a muttaide or a senior lady there. Right? I don't know, there are no English words for all this. So I don't know what to say. Same words. So it doesn't convey any import there, but that's what it is. So Arundhati, if you look at this, right, I mean, this must have been there. We see this today also when like someone goes to look at the girl's house, right? So you talk to the girl, you ask her to sing, maybe to ascertain that she can talk properly or pronounce properly. I don't know. They can also observe her teeth. Maybe she has a good dentist, so on, dental work done, everything. I don't know. And then she speaks, she talks to them, she walks around, and something like this, right? So that's probably what Kalidasa meant. This is what typically happens in a Madhu Pariksha. And then the commentator actually writes, Mallinatha writes something very nice. Stri pradhaneshu krityeshu strinameva ghatana patavam. This is primarily a women's thing, right? They're going for kanyarthi. They are kanyarthis. They're asking for the girl. So it's something related to women. So in this, women have a better acumen and skill than the men. And that is the dhwani here. So I'll go with what Mallinatha says, and then the Saptarshis go to Oshadik Prastha, which is the capital of Himalayas and the capital city of Himavanta.
गगनादवतीर्णा सा गगनादवतीर्णा सा गगनादवतीर्णा सा यथा वृद्धपुरस्सरा यथा वृद्धपुरस्सरा तो यान्तर्भास्करालीव तो यान्तर्भास्करालीव तो यान्तर्भास्करालीव रेजे परंपरा मुनि परंपरा parampara re je toyantarbhaskaraliva re je muni parampara muni parampara.
So now the saparishis proceed to the Himalayas. And we skipped over some verses which I'll just fill in where the poet describes the Himalayas and Oshadip Prastha. It was an opulent city where like youth was the last stage. There was nothing beyond youth, which means nobody got old. It was a place for all pleasures. And Manmatha was the only slayer. The destroyer was only Manmatha, which means there was just love and so on. The poet makes these great things and then he says, the Saptarshis thought, why do people do tapas to attain Swarga? They might as well do it for Oshadip Prastha. Because this is better than all Swarga. Right? Thinking thus, the poet says, he describes Oshadip Prastha with great beauty and then they descend on the city of Oshadip Prastha. And the poet says, Gaganad-avatirna, they descended from the sky like the Malaya Maruta. Like Malaya Maruta is like the mountain winds. Malaya is mountain, Maruta is the wind. So like a cool breeze in the mountains, they descended on Oshadip Prastha. Yatha Vriddha Purassaraha. See here Kalidasa doesn't even leave that small detail. Vriddha Purassaraha, the eldest one was in front amongst the Saptarshis. Because that is the tradition. When you go somewhere, when you go to a girl's house, typically the elder person, steps in first. That is the level of detail that Kalidasa provides. And it is just a casual, it's just thrown in casually. And that's the dhwani there. And also the whole opulent thing that the poet describes about Oshadip Prastha is probably to indicate that Parvati, in spite of all these opulences, is like Padmapatra Mivambhasa. She is in an opulent city, but she is not there. She is detached from all that because she wants Shiva, the Parama Vairagya Murti. She does not, it's not like Tata marrying Ambani because they're equals. Right? She's not trying to marry somebody in Swarga. She has lived in that kind of a Swarga, but she wants to marry a Vairagya Murti who is a Bhikshuka. And that's the dhwani that he's trying to bring there. And when the Muni Parampara, we usually use it in the meaning of a lineage or something, Vamsha Vriksha or lineage. Parampara means one after the other. It's even a lineage, is one after the other. One person comes after the other and so on. But the Muni Parampara is like a row of sages. They descended one after the other with the eldest one in front. And how did they appear? Right? That's the Toyantarbhaskaraliva. He made a beautiful thing in the singing there. I'm very bad at music, so I can't explain what he did. But in the beginning, one of the verses he said they are as radiant and effulgent. They are tapodhanaha and they're so radiant and lustrous. But here he says Toyantarbhaskaraliva. They shone like the reflection of the sun in water. Because you can't see the noonday sun. We can't see it with our eyes. And the people of Oshadip Prastha cannot sustain that. So they appeared more cool and like radiant but cool with a warm glow, if you will. And that's how they appeared. And for the Bhaskarali, and on the water, if you see the reflection, you see the ripples, and that's what he was trying to make with the swaras there. Toyantarbhaskaraliva. So he's trying to bring out all the emotion in the singing itself for the words. So if you have read this or if you understand the words immediately, you can make out what he's trying to say because he's singing them twice with the right, swaras, and he's trying to bring out the emotions in the music itself. And the other thing is like day after tomorrow, I think, is the solar eclipse in parts of the United States. You can't see the sun directly, right? So you either see it on a reflection, you can see it, on a screen or something. This is something like that. You can't see the radiance with the naked eyes. So the poet is making that they are so bright that they had to cool down their luster. So the people were able to only see the reflection but not them. And that's the import of the verse here.
Is it like the Virat Rupa for Arjuna? He needed the divine eyes to see.
Exactly, yes.
So, cool.
अपमेघोदयं वर्षम् अपमेघोदयं वर्षम् अदृष्टकुसुमं फलम् अपमेघोदयं वर्षम् अदृष्टकुसुमं फलम् अतर्कितोपपन्नं वो दर्शनम् अपमेघोदयं वर्षम् अदृष्टकुसुमं फलम् अतर्कितोपपन्नं वो दर्शनं प्रतिभाति मे वो दर्शनं प्रतिभाति मे
So if there is Amrita Varshini, there must be some rain, and we've been seeing a lot of rain. Apameghodayam Varsham. This is a very beautiful figure of speech in this verse. Things are happening without any cause. The effect is happening without the cause. Apameghodayam Varsham. There are no clouds, but it's raining. Adrishta Kusumam Phalam. You're seeing fruits, but there were no flowers. Right? It has to happen in that sequence, but you're not seeing the cause, but you're only seeing the effect. Atarkitopapannam vo darshanam pratibhati me. So these things are happening unexpectedly, atarkita, without any reason. And this is Himavanta telling the Saptarshis. It's raining without the clouds. We are seeing, fruits everywhere without the flowers. So I have not done anything to attain this, but you have graced me with your presence. That's what he's trying to say. Because you get something without working for it, you feel so happy. I did not do anything, I still got it. And he's so overjoyed on seeing the Saptarshis that the poet uses a very nice figure of speech, which is called either vibhavana. There is no bhavana here. The cause is not there, but the effect is seen. So when the girl enters the room, you say there is moonlight here without the moon. Something like that. So you're likening her face to the moon. That's the suggestion there. So this is that kind of a figure of speech. Right? So Kamadeva's arrows are piercing me, but they are not sharp. So they are not sharp, but they pierce you, which means you're falling in love. So that's the import. So these things are happening without a cause, but you can see the effect. And that's what the poet is saying. So and Himavanta accords them great respect. He takes them to the interior of the palace. He makes them sit on a Vetrasana. Kalidasa even says that because even with all the opulence, he knows that the Saptarshis will have to be accorded something. Vetrasana is like a cane furniture or something like that, because that is what they need. Right? They don't want to sit on a Simhasana. They want a Vetrasana, which is cane furniture, something like that. Or on the floor. So he welcomes them profusely and then takes them in, and then let's see what happens.
एते वयम् अमीदाराः कन्येयं कुलजीवितम् एते वयम् अमीदाराः कन्ये येनात्रवः कार्यम् एते वयम् अमीदाराः कन्येयं कुलजीवितम् ब्रूत येनात्रवः कार्यम् अनास्थाः बाह्यवस्तुषु एते वयम् अमीदाराः कन्येयं ब्रूत येनात्रवः कार्यम् अनास्थाः बाह्यवस्तुषु अनास्थाः बाह्यवस्तुषु.
Now Himavanta is doing his family introduction to the Saptarshis. Yete Vayam. This is us. This is me. He says us. Vayam is not me, it's us. With us, it includes him and everything he has. Everything that he has, he's including with that Vayam. Ami Dara. This is my wife. And here there is a nuance. Daraha is a Bahuvachana, it's plural. In Kannada we say Manyoru. It's always in plural, right? So he's saying that, and this must have been the tradition, and Kalidasa says this so beautifully. Kanyeyam kulajeevitam. Kanyayam kulajeevitam. And this girl here is our kulajeevitam. And he beautifully stressed on that kulajeevitam. She is verily the life of our family, Parvati. So I think there is some tradition of, when we hear the Amritavarshini, we remember rain. And it's not like Amritavarshini brings rain or something, but for a long time it has just been associated with rain, that as soon as we hear that raga, we think of rain. And when we think of Hindola, right, there is something about Vadhu Pariksha. As some of you who might have seen the movie Schoolmaster, Bhameya Nodalu Tabanda, Brindavanadinda. It's in the Sulamangalam Rajalakshmi song, which is in Hindola, such a beautiful song. And here, instead of the girl singing, the girl's father is saying this, and he sung that in Hindola. So he's saying, Bhruta yenatra vahkaryam. Please tell me what work is there. What do you expect of me? I'm at your service. What can I do for you? Because the reason is so beautiful that he gives. Anastha bahya vastushu. Everything, all external material objects are, I'm not interested in that. Because they are not interested. They would not have come to him if they wanted something from some other, physical object or something else. They could have created it themselves. Because he understands that they are here for him and nothing else. They are here, there is some service that he has to do. And he's saying, tell me what I should do for you, so that, we can start on that. And here he says, Ete Vayam. When he says that, right, so this kavya is called a Shravya kavya. So this is not like a play where, okay, somebody is standing there, you give all the stage suggestions, you can see. It's a Shravya kavya, which is only to be heard. But the poet says this in a language which almost feels like a Drishya kavya, which you can see. You can see the imagery when he says, this is us, this is my wife, this is, our daughter. When he says that, the pada paddhati, the tone of the words, everything, you can see the excitement in the words itself, even though, I can read it out in a very dull voice. Right? Still, it will come across that way, and that is the power of poetry here. And then the poet says something else. Dviriva pratishabdena vyajahara Himalaya. When he said that, the poet says, see, this is Himalaya, and the Himalaya has a lot of caves. Right? We can imagine that. A lot of caves. So when he said, it appeared as though it was said twice because it was echoing in the caves when he said. The dhvani is that when you say something twice, it is an assertion that, it's a confirmation. If you say once, maybe you can escape, hey, that's not what I said. You misheard me. But when you say it twice, there is no going back on your word. You have committed to it. And that is the dhvani, as if there was a pratishabda, as if the caves in the Himalayas echoed that. And in the Devar Puja, if you do some kind of Satyanarayana Puja or some other Vrata or something, right? If you have a Purohita, they say Tathastu, Tathastu, they say twice some of the things, which is to confirm. And the dhvani here is that the caves echoed it, saying that he was confirming it. He did not say it twice, but it sounded as though it was said twice, that it was a confirmation of his word given. What can we do for you? Which means it will be done. That's the dhvani there. And then Angirasa, one of the Saptarshis, starts speaking.
साक्षात् साक्षी विश्वस्य कर्मणा वृणुते वरदः शम्भुः वृणुते वरदः शम्भुः अस्मत्सङ्क्रामितैः पदैः ते दुहितरं साक्षी विश्वस्य कर्मणा वृणुते वरदः शम्भुः अस्मत्सङ्क्रामितैः पदैः वृणुते
So they sang two verses together because both these are said by the rishis, the Saptarshis, to Himavanta. The first one is, it has a lot of meaning. Let me see how much I can try to convey. Yogino yam vichinvanti. Yoginaha, the yogis, on whom they meditate, right? On whom the yogis are trying to realize, that is Shiva. Shiva is the one that the yogis are trying to realize. And where is Shiva? Kshetrabhyantara vartinam. Kshetrabhyantara vartinam. Kshetra is the body. Okay, this is the kshetra for us. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Idam shariram kaunteya kshetram ityavidiyate. Etadyo vetti tam prahu kshetragna iti tam vidaha iti tad vidaha. So this is the kshetra. This is called the kshetra, as Krishna tells Arjuna. And one who understands the kshetra is the kshetragna. One who understands the kshetra is the kshetragna. So the yogis are the ones who are trying to realize the inner self, right? Because that is where Shiva resides. And what happens if they realize that? Anavritti bhayam. Anavritti is punarjanma. And that bhaya will go away because you attain moksha. Moksha is it is siddha, it is not somewhere else, it is right here. It is understanding ourselves and being a sthita prajna, understanding where we are, what we are doing, being mindful, being conscious of action will reduce all fears. And yoga, right? I have to say something here. Yoga is not something that we see everywhere today. That is not yoga. That is not the yoga that is mentioned in our tradition. Yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta vritti, it is the controlling of the senses and the mind to achieve something. Nirodha, it is blocking and controlling all the senses. Even the Kathopanishad says that Stiram Indriya Dharanam, tightly controlling all the indriyas and the sense organs and our thoughts and focusing them into something, which is what people call mindfulness, living consciously, everything. That is exactly what yoga is. And the yogis are not doing some asana somewhere in the Himalayas. They are not, doing all those kind of things like, hot bath and, hot yoga, cold yoga, all those things. They are not doing all that. They are trying to meditate and think deeply about something. And we also doing some task with 100% concentration is yoga. That is what yoga is, right? So, and the anavritti bhayam, right? Once you realize that nothing can just make you vicharita, it cannot distract you, it cannot confuse you, and you are not troubled by other mere things. And there is a lot of things that here Kalidasa says, which is from the Vedas, from the Upanishads, as I keep saying, so I keep referring back to Purusha Sukta because most people are familiar with Purusha Sukta, where he says, Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Adityavarnam Tamasah Parastat, right? So Purusham Mahantam Purusham, he is like Adityavarnam, he is resplendent like the sun, golden like the sun. Tamasah Parastat, he dispels all the darkness. Tamasa is darkness. He dispels all the darkness, the ignorance from us. And then what happens with that? Tamevam vidwan amrita iha bhavati. And that is what the vidwans call amrita. Amrita is that nectar which gives us immortality. And understanding ourselves is what gives us immortality. Nanyah pantha vidyate yanaya. There is no other path other than the realization of the self. And Kalidasa says all this in just one shloka. And he does not say this in any preachy way. He does not try to be didactic. He doesn't say, you should do this, you should do that. He's not prescriptional. He's casually bringing it in the middle of the story. And it is perfectly natural for this character to say this. And this is how it touches us. And this is the greatness. You can read 100 Shastras. But reading one kavya or remembering this verse and applying it to ourselves has a greater force than all this. And then the second verse he switched to Kalyani Raga. Because there, the Saptarshis are saying, Vrunute Varadashambhuhu. The one who is marrying here is our Shambhu, Shiva. Vrunute, marriage, right? Marrying. And that is why he brought Kalyani Raga there. Sate Duhitaram. And who is Shiva? Sakshat Sakshi Vishwasya Karmanam. He is verily the one who is looking at all the things that are happening in the world. He is Sakshat Sakshi. He is the witness to all the deeds. And Asmat Sankramita Ipadai, and we are the ones who are telling you. And why are they trying to, and they are saying this because they are the willing participants in this. It's not like he said that we are just conveying this to you. No, we are here. We want this to happen. They are saying that with that feeling because, see, there is in our tradition, they are also Vayamatra Bhaginaha, Vayamatramsha Bhaginaha. They will also get a part of the, like the fruit out of this because in our Indian tradition, we involve a lot of relatives into many of the activities, in many of the rituals, right? The Sodra Mama, the maternal uncle brings the bride. Then, when you have the Tali or the Mangalya, you take it around everyone. Everybody touches it. You involve everybody. It is that kind of a ritual, right? Only now wedding has become a spectator sport. You just go, people sit somewhere in the back, they they have their lunch and then they just go away. It was not supposed to be a spectator sport. Everybody had a part to play in it. Atramsha bhaginaha, because I think the Manusmriti says karta karaita chaiva prerakaschanumodaka. The doer, karaita, the one who makes them do, preraka, the one who inspires, and the anumodaka, the one who seconds. Everybody gets an equal part of the benefit or the fruits of the labor. Everybody gets the fruit out of that action. So they are saying we are willing participants in this, and we are not asking the bride for someone, not some person. It is Shiva, the one who is the Vishwasya Sakshi. He is seeing everything in the world, and for him we are asking for your daughter Parvati's hand in marriage.
भवान् दाता याचितारः इमे वयम् उमावधूः भवान् दाता याचितारः इमे वयम् वरशम्भुः अलं ह्येषः त्वत्कुलोद्भूतये विधिः त्वत्कुलोद्भूतये विधिः.
So after they said all this, now we are coming to the TLDR. Okay, so they're summarizing. Uma is the Vadhu. We are asking for this girl, Uma, Parvati's hand in marriage. Yachitara ime vayam. People asking for this on behalf of Shiva, not somebody. It is us, the Saptarshis. They're not making a vain boast. They know who they are, and they're saying this is us asking for your hand, for your daughter's hand in marriage to Shiva. Varashambhu alam, for Shiva. Now we are asking this not for someone but Shiva. Tvatkulodbhutaye vidihi. And what more can your family ask? This is as exalted as it gets for you and your family, and there can be nothing bigger than this, because verily Shiva is the father. He's the Jagat Pita, Jagatah Pita. Right? He's the Jagatah Pitaro. In the Raghuvamsha, in the beginning, Kalidasa says, Vagartha viva sampruptau Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah Pitaro vande Parvati Parameshwaro. They are Jagatah Pitaro. So Shiva is the Jagatah Pita. She is going to become the Jagan Mata. This is not some ordinary marriage. She is going to be the Jagan Mata. And here Dr. Ganesh makes a very nice observation that in the Lalita Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of Parvati, it starts off Shri Mata, Shri Maharagni, Shri Mat Simhasaneshwari, and then it ends with Shiva Shaktyaikkya Rupini Lalitambika. The first name is Shri Mata, the last name is Ambika, both mean mother. The other 998 names are just sandwiched between the two names, which means mother, because she is Jagan Mata, and that is what she is going to become. And that is the Shambhu, that is the Shiva, the Jagatah Pita, for whom we are asking your daughter's hand in marriage.
अस्तोतुः स्तूयमानस्य अस्तोतुः स्तूयमानस्य वन्द्यस्य अनन्यवन्दिनः वन्द्यस्यानन्यवन्दिनः सुता सम्बन्धविधिना सुता सम्बन्धविधिना भव विश्वगुरोः गुरुः विश्वगुरो गुरुः
And as if he was still not convinced, it's not that he wasn't, but the Saptarshis continued. Who is Shiva? Astotuhu stuyamanasya. He bows to none, but he is bowed down to by everyone. Astotuhu stuyamanasya. Vandyasya ananya vandinaha. He salutes none, but he is saluted to. Everybody does namaskarams and prostrations to Shiva. That is our Shiva. And then in the second part of the verse is the magic of Kalidasa. Suta sambandha vidina bhava vishwaguru or guruhu. He is the Vishwaguru. Shiva is the Vishwaguru. You know that, we know that. But Suta sambandha vidina. Suta is daughter. Through this relationship of your daughter marrying Shiva, bhava, become what? Vishwaguru or guruhu. You become the guru to the Vishwaguru. Now, when in the marriage, the Kashi Yatre. So the groom, says he is going away to Kashi to do, Adhyayana, and then the father-in-law goes behind him and then brings him back and say, please come and marry my daughter, and so on. And then he washes the feet of the bridegroom and then gives his daughter in marriage. Right? Well, in today's world, we want actually Shiva to go back and reside in Kashi. That's a different thing. But so once the father-in-law washes the feet of the groom, after that the groom always bows down to the father-in-law. That's the tradition. So by giving away your daughter, you are going to become the guru to the Vishwaguru. That's what Kalidasa is saying. And this is just a testament of Kalidasa reiterating tradition, reiterating values, and everything that is in Sanatana Dharma that we see. Through this we can see that the same things were there even 2000 years ago. There's an unbroken tradition of things that we have in India. None of the other civilizations, right? Greek or Roman or none of them can today trace back things that they did 2000 years ago. We still do most of the things exactly as they were. And this is just one of the things that Kalidasa is again telling us. And next we come to a very beautiful verse. What was Parvati doing all this time? Let's see what she was doing.
एवं वादिनि देवर्षौ एवं वादिनि देवर्षौ पार्श्वे पितुः अधोमुखी लीला कमलपत्राणि गणयामास
While the Devarshis, the Maharshis were saying all this, they were talking to Himavanta, Himavanta was talking to them. While this conversation was happening, what was Parvati doing? Now the poet comes back to the scene. He's again creating a visual image. Parshve pitur adhomukhi. Parshve, by the side. Pitu, her father's side. She was still standing there by her father's side. And what was she doing? Adhomukhi. She was looking down, bent her head and looking down. And then what was she doing? I'll just literally say what the poet says. Leela Kamalapatrani Ganayamasa Parvati. She had a lotus flower in her hand with her head bowed down. She was counting the number of petals in the flower. That's what he says. So what does it mean? I mean, yes, she was counting. But the import is very, very clear to us. She was so shy, she couldn't lift her head. She did not want to look up and see the Saptarshis because they were talking about her. Her father was talking about her. She was so overcome with shyness and modesty that she could not lift her head. And she was just counting. Because we don't sometimes, if you have been on the stage in theatre and all these things, you don't know what to do with your hands. Right? People do something, you can't put them in your pockets, you can't do something, so people do something. And this is one of those situations, again, you don't know what to do. You're there, she can't go back to her room. Right? That's not etiquette, that's not propriety. So she's there and she's doing something, but the poet does not say that she was shy. That is left for us to understand from this that she was shy. Her face was flushed, she was blushing. They were talking about her, of her impending marriage to Shiva, and all he says is she was just counting the petals on a flower. And this is suggestion at its best. This is called Vyangya, which is obliqueness. The poet is saying something but not straight. So he's saying it in an oblique manner. A curved manner, oblique manner, and it results in dhvani, which is suggestion. We understand it. For example, when we say, oh, there's let's say some stupid person who's coming and you say, oh, this is Brihaspati Banda, Brihaspati. We definitely don't mean him to be Brihaspati. We actually mean the opposite of Brihaspati, because Brihaspati is the preceptor of the gods. We mean the opposite, but what we are saying is something else. But people understand what we mean, right? That is dhvani. And here also, this poet is saying something else. He's describing the scene literally, but we have to imagine what is happening. And it's such a visual picture that you can imagine Himavanta sitting there, Parvati by his side, and she's overcome with shyness and counting petals, or plucking petals out of the flower, doing some nonsensical thing. But there is all the sense in the world in what she's doing. And what does Himavanta do after that? Let's see.
कन्यार्थेषु कुटुम्बिनः
explain the meaning of the verse, you'll understand why they chose Ananda Bhairavi for this. Shailah Sampurna Kamopi. Shailaha, that is Himavanta, Sampurna Kamaha, he is completely satisfied. Sampurna Kamaha api. Even though he is completely satisfied with what the Saptarshis have told him and tried to convince him about Shiva. It's not that he had any doubt at all in the first place, but they did all that. Mena Mukhamudaikkshata. Mena is Himavanta's wife. Parvataraja's wife is Mena. Mena Mukhamudaikkshata. He just saw her face once and smiled. He lifted his face up, looked at her and smiled. And then Kalidasa says this, Prayena Grihini Netraha Kanyartheshu Kutumbinaha. Because the wives are the guiding eyes. Grihini Netraha. The Grihinis are the Netras for the family, especially in matters of Kanyartha. And when you are discussing the groom for your daughter or any of these matters, he has to take the confirmation of his wife. And he just looked at her. And they both completely understand each other. They both look at each other and there is a smile, and then a couple's looks can tell all the meaning, whether she's angry or not, or don't do that, and okay, I completely agree with you, and she probably smiled back or something. That's left to our imagination, but we definitely know what she said. But the mood is that even in this, Kalidasa is not swaying from tradition or something where Himavanta could have said yes immediately, but he doesn't. He looks at his wife just to get that they both are on the same page or something. This whole Mahakavya, whatever Kalidasa writes, is just not mere poetry. It is something more. It is a commentary on Sanatana Dharma, our rituals, traditions, everything. Right from the beginning when we started this sarga, Parvati could have just said yes to Shiva when Shiva said Adyah Prabhritya Vanatangi Tavasmi Dasaha. I am your Dasa, let's go. She could have done Gandharva Vivaha. Nobody would have batted an eyelid because it is Shiva himself who is asking this. Shiva could have said, let us marry and run away now. And nobody would have called that, some kind of elopement or something, because that is Shiva. But he did not. He said, Satatheti Pratignaya. He said, yes, so be it. And he said yes to what she said because that was righteousness and that's right. And then he could have gone and asked for her hand in marriage from her father, but he did not. He summoned elders, and that to the Saptarshis, to go and ask for her hand on his behalf. Nowhere and everywhere, every path, Kalidasa does not swerve from the path of Dharma. It is just that again and again, but it is not explicit. That is the beauty. Any Shastra, Dharma Shastra, whatever, Apastamba, Grihya Sutra, any other sutras, Baudhayana Dharma Sutra, Grihya Sutras, they say, do this, a householder should do this, somebody should do that, you should do that, you should do this. No, Kalidasa never says that. He brings it out in his poetry in such a way that you cannot help but appreciate it and accept everything he says.
एहि विश्वात्मने वत्से एहि विश्वात्मने वत्से भिक्षासि परिकल्पिता वत्से भिक्षासि परिकल्पिता अर्थिनो मुनयः अर्थिनो मुनयः अर्थिनो मुनयः प्राप्तं गृहमेधिफलं वत्से प्राप्तं गृहमेधिफलं मया वत्से अर्थिनो मुनयः प्राप्तं गृहमेधिफलं मया वत्से भिक्षासि परिकल्पिता वत्से वत्से
Ehi Vatse, Ehi, please come here. He's calling his daughter Parvati, who's standing by his side. Ehi, come here, Parvati. Vatse, Bhikshasi, Vishwatmane Bhikshasi Parikalpita. With just a look between the eyes, the exchange between Himavanta and Mena, they have decided. So he says that we have decided to give you as Bhiksha to Vishwatma, that is Shiva. Why Bhiksha? Again, this is phenomenal. The casual word that Kalidasa uses. Anything that you give to a sannyasi is called Bhiksha. You can give it as a loan, you can give it as a dana, charity, donation, whatever. You can deduct it on your tax return. Whatever you give, it is called Bhiksha. And that person can only take Bhiksha. And Grihastha Shraddhaya Dadyat Bhiksham Bhikshartino Sada. It is said that Grihasthas should give Bhiksha always with great Shraddha. And that will give them a lot of phala. And so he is rightly giving her as Bhiksha, even though he is doing Kanyadana. It is actually, technically the term is Bhiksha in this case because Shiva is the Parama Vairagya Murti and the Bhikshuka. And Arthino Munayaha, the ones asking are the Saptarshis. And that is, that is who are gracing us. Praptam Grihamedhi Phalam Maya. By doing this, I am getting the Grihamedhi Phala. The duties of a Grihastha are Sisruksha, which is to have progeny, have children. And then one of the great phalas that you get out of it is Kanyadana. Kanya Adana. To give away the bride is one of the great duties and which gives him great, phala. And he is getting that by doing this Kanyadana. And even Kumaravyasa says this. Veda Parayanada Pala, Krichradi Tapasina Pala, Jyotishtoma Yagadi Pala, Vastradi, Kanyadana Pala Vahudu. And he says this. All these are equivalent phalas. Kanyadana Phala, Jyotishtoma Yaga, doing this great yagnas, the phala that it gives. And then Gangadi Tirthasnana Phala. These are the great phalas in our tradition. And he says, by giving you away to Shiva, I am getting all the phalas of being Grihastha. And then the Saptarshis talk, and then after this, we are nearing the end of this. So Himavanta asks the Saptarshis and consults them when to arrange the marriage, and then they say that the marriage will be held in 3 days' time. And then they go back to Shiva and tell him the news. And now we see what Shiva was doing.
Pashupatirapi Tanyahani Krichrat Pashupatirapi Tanyahani Krichrat Agamayadadrisuta Samagamotkaha Agamayad Adrisuta Samagamotkaha Kamaparam Avasham Kamaparamavasham na viprakuryuh Kamaparamavasham na viprakuryuh Vibhumapitam yadami Vibhumapitam yadami sprishanti bhava Vibhumapitam yadami sprishanti.
Sargabandho Mahakavyaha. So this is a Mahakavya, and one of the names for that is a Sargabandha, because this is all divided into chapters called Sargas. And all these, when they were written in the palm leaf manuscripts or something, or when somebody said this, how do you delineate the Sargas? Right? So these were all written in one line. There was no now we print everything line by line, but it was all written horizontally, completely with no space. So how do you delineate a Sarga? At this time, the meter changes. All the verses we saw until now was Anushtup, which had, as I said, 8 letters, 8 syllables per foot. Now we come to this called Pushpitagra. It's a different meter. With that, it was a longer one. And we know that we are at the end of the Sarga. And Pashupatirapi. Now the poet says, what is happening to Pashupati? Shiva who sent his emissaries, the Saptarshis, have now come back and told him. And the marriage is in 3 days. So what's happening in Shiva's mind? What is he doing? Pashupati. He is the one who controls the Pashus. He lassos them, controls them. But now Pashupati himself has been caught in a loop. Because Tanyahani Krichrad Agamayat. Those 3 days, he also spent with great difficulty. Krichrad Agamayat. Even Shiva, the Vairagya Murti, who was, Adrisutat Samagamotsukaha. He was Utsuka, excited to be united with Adrisuta. Adri is a mountain and Suta is daughter. So the daughter of the mountains, Parvati. Even Shiva spent those days with great difficulty. Kalidasa also says a similar thing in the Abhignana Shakuntalam, where Shakuntala is being sent off to Dushyanta's house by Kanva Maharshi. And when Kanva is letting her go, he says, Vaiklavyam mamatavad idrishamidam snehad aranyaukasaha Vidyante gruhinah katamnu tanayad vishlesha dukhair namaihi. Kanva is a Maharshi, sannyasi. And Shakuntala is his foster daughter. Even he says, while sending away my foster daughter, me, a sannyasi in a forest, I am feeling the pangs of separation. What then to say of grihasthas and normal people who have to send away their daughters when they get married? And here also, we see Shiva himself, Krichrad Agamayat. The poet doesn't elaborate here. He says Shiva also spent it with great difficulty somehow. And then he says, Vibhumapitam yadamis prashanti bhavaha. When these feelings can touch even Shiva, then what then of us? Maybe there is a ray of hope that we don't have to be measured up to that bar. The bar is too high, but we can try. We can also try to inculcate many of these things, but Kalidasa is giving us a slight ray of hope here. And with that, we come to the end of this chapter called the Uma Pradhanam, and the wedding happens in the next chapter.
Pravartatam prakrtihitaya parthivaha Saraswati shruti mahati mahiyatam mamapicha kshapayatu nilalohitaha mamapicha kshapayatu Punarbhavam Parigata Shaktiratma Bhuhu Atma Bhuhu Mama Pichakshapayatu Nilalohitaha Punarbhavam Parigata Shaktiratma Bhuhu.
Sarve bhavantu
Sarve bhavantu sukhinah Sarve bhavantu sukhinah सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग्